So I don't know exactly where to start, but let's start with Toy Story. Okay, so Toy Story is the first 3D animated feature film ever, which is like really cool. And it's the first Pixar movie, and it was made by like John Lasseter, Pete Docter, and like Andrew Stanton, all of the Lee Unkrich, all of the original peoples. Steve Jobs was there too. And like yeah, it was like it was a really impressive film, very revolutionary, not only in its animation but also in its storytelling, because it came out around the time where came around the Disney Renaissance, which was when like all the Disney princess movies came out, or all of the good Disney princess movies came out, and yeah, like back then all the animation companies were trying to copy Disney. Like, oh, you need princesses, you need love, you need it to be a musical. And then so for Pixar, they're like, no, we're not gonna do any of that. We're gonna have it be like a buddy movie with okay, not a lot of romance. I guess Bo Peep was there, but like not it wasn't focused on romance. And there was gonna be no music. And so they were back then. Pixar was trying to make a deal with Disney. Disney didn't own Pixar back then quite yet, but they were like planning on it, or they were trying to strike up a deal of some sort. And so they were looking at Toy Story, and they were like, we're not so sure. Like they were like they were really skeptical. They didn't really believe in Pixar because one, they didn't think that 3D animation would be good because it wasn't like it was brand new, so they didn't really know whether it would do well or not. And it was going against like all of the fundamental or quote unquote fundamental story in like things that you need in an animated movie. But when it came out, it was like really successful. And then yeah, it was like very cool. It was a very good film. It has like 100% Rotten Tomatoes, which is really cool. But I don't really have much to talk about Toy Story, and neither do I have a lot to talk about with like Bugs Life. I felt a little bad for Bugs Life. Like Bugs Life didn't deserve all of the like it didn't really get negative feedback, but like nobody really remembers A Bug's Life, and I think that A Bug's Life is like pretty charming. It's got like it's got an antagonist, unlike well, I mean, I guess Toy Story does have an antagonist, but like this one has like a villain, which is like Hopper, you know. Bugs Life was kind of interesting because that was when they like fired this guy from who went to DreamWorks and made Ants, which is why those two movies have a lot of similarities. But yeah, like A Bug's Life is A Bug's Life. It came after Toy Story, which is kind of sad because everyone expected another Toy Story and got A Bug's Life. But then they made Toy Story 2. Okay, so Toy Story 2 has like a really interesting behind the scenes aspect to it, because it was around when they made a deal with Disney that they would make a whole bunch of sequels to these films that they were about to make. And so like one of the sequels was Toy Story 2, and back then Disney was at their like straight to DVD thing. Like all the sequels, like Disney didn't really make sequels other than straight to DVD sequels, so they wanted Toy Story 2 to be a straight to DVD sequel. But the creators of Toy Story thought that the Toy Story 2 was so good that it should be released in theaters and it should have a theater quality. But by that point, they only had like a year or two, I think, to make it, maybe less. And usually animated films take 3 to 4 years, and Pixar films take like 4 to 5 years. So yeah, they had to like really rush, and all the animators and people were like really they were really passionate about their works, but they were like starting to like stay they'd stay at work for like excessive amounts of time, like unhealthy amounts of time, and it got to the point where one of the workers actually went to they were like supposed to drop off their kid at daycare, their like little toddler at daycare, and then they got to the Pixar headquarters, and when they were working, it wasn't until like an hour later when their wife told them, like asked them if they dropped their kid off at daycare, and they found out that he actually left the child in like the burning hot parking lot of California. And they had to like quickly rescue the baby because it was gonna die. But luckily the baby didn't die, thank goodness. But like it was like a really big wake up call, and they were like, yeah, everyone should probably like sleep and eat. So yeah, like that was a big wake up point. And they managed to make Toy Story 2. And it turned out to be really good. There's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's said to be, some people classify it as like their favorite Toy Story film, which I have my own opinions on, but it is a good film. Oh yeah, and it also almost got deleted twice. I don't know how it got deleted first, but I know the second time, or at least one of the times. So Pixar has a lot of like computers that hold a lot of data. It takes a lot of data to make a film, an animated film, especially a 3D animated film. And so after they finish every film, they have this delete button that just deletes all of the work in the computers. And so apparently one time somebody accidentally pressed that button in the middle of making Toy Story 2. And by the time they the emergency button to stop that button wasn't working, and so by the time they stopped it from deleting everything, they got like 80% of the movie was deleted. And then they found out that one of the employees was pregnant, and so they wanted to keep the files for the movie so that they could show their like newborn baby. And so they rushed to her house and took the like refrigerator-sized computer and drove it over to Pixar, and then they got like the majority of their work back. And so like Toy Story 2 was crazy stuff going on. That was like the most like absurd, or not absurd, but like the craziest behind the scenes story I've heard yet. I mean, not that I've heard a lot of stories from behind the scenes, but like yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one. What came after Toy Story 2? After Toy Story 2 came, I think, Monsters Inc. Yeah, Monsters Inc. So Monsters Inc. was the first one directed by Pete Docter, which is my favorite director. And he said that originally, like at first he was like, I think he was the storyboard artist, but then this is his first directing film, and so he based it off of the fact that he was turning into a father, and he was trying to balance out like home life and like work life, and that was like the foundation of Monsters Inc. It originated from just an idea of like what if monsters scaring children was just like the monsters' jobs, but like the whole father situation was like the heart of the film, which he explains is like a really important part, because it can't just be like a funny idea. It needs to have like heart behind it. It needs to have like a good life story behind it. Monsters Inc. was the first movie to like really use those hair effects. Originally, if you look at like the first Toy Story, or like all the other films previously, there wasn't a lot of hair. Like either the hair was really limited or it looked kind of plastic. And so this was the first time, because with Sully, they had to animate all of the hairs, and it's like, I don't remember how much, it's like thousands and thousands of hair strands that they had to animate, which is like really crazy for back then. And that's why like Sully is like kind of the only fluffy monster in Monsters Inc., because hair is just that hard to animate. Like Monsters Inc. is a really nice film. I really like it. It's like definitely like one of the classics and one of the top ones in Pixar's catalog. But yeah, like that's one of them. Finding Nemo. So Finding Nemo was my first movie that I ever watched, and my favorite movie ever until Soul. So like this is my favorite movie for basically like my entire life until now, until recently. And oh boy, I have so much. Okay, so like I have watched Finding Nemo so many times that I've basically been able to recite the entire script. Not that I will, but I mean that could be for another time. But so Finding Nemo was like the first time they made water in like 3D animation using particle effects, and it was like really cool. It was also like the first. I don't know. It was like for a long time. It had the most DVDs sold out of any animated movie, and also Finding Nemo is like the prime example of a family film. Like Finding Nemo is the family film. It's got stuff for adults, it's got stuff for kids, it's colorful, it's fun, has a dark side to it, has a bright side to it. It's so good. It was also the first, pretty much like the first, it was the first Pixar movie to like start off with something like really sad. And it's the first Pixar movie to show blood, so that's pretty cool. So Finding Nemo was directed by Andrew Stanton, who's also really good. He directed like Wall-E and stuff like that. But yeah, Finding Nemo is I will always hold a bias towards Finding Nemo, just because it's like my childhood movie, my lifetime movie pretty much, and I am like a really big fan of Finding Nemo just because of how significant it has been to my life. But Soul is just, we'll talk about Soul later. But Finding Nemo is like a really good movie. It has a 98% of Rotten Tomatoes, and yeah, like it came out 2 years before I was born, and it was apparently my older brother's first movie in the theaters, and yeah, it was a really good movie. I don't know what else to say. Like it's like a really good movie. I guess if I were to go further in depth, I could, but not now. What comes next? Oh, The Incredibles. So The Incredibles is like definitely the most popular, I'd say, Pixar movie. Maybe Ratatouille might be the most popular, but yeah, The Incredibles is definitely like one of those. Like, it's like, yeah, it's really good. I personally don't have a strong connection with The Incredibles. I do think it's a good movie, like a really good movie, but like I'm not as nostalgic towards it because when I was little I thought it was boring, because I was that kind of child. But yeah, The Incredibles is really good. It has a really nice twist on like superhero stuff, very iconic characters and memes. But yeah, like The Incredibles was done by Brad Bird, and I really like Brad Bird because Brad Bird definitely has. I share a lot of opinions with about animation with Brad Bird. So it's just like animation isn't just for kids. Animation isn't a genre; it's an art form. Blah blah blah, things like that. All that kind of stuff that I won't go into. But yeah, The Incredibles is a really good movie. Yeah, because next, okay, so actually the thing about Finding Nemo and The Incredibles is that Pixar announced both of these films, and everyone thought that Finding Nemo was gonna suck and that The Incredibles was gonna be like the big thing, and it it didn't flip because like both of them were really well praised, but Finding Nemo was like better than everyone thought, and also Finding Nemo was more successful than The Incredibles, I think. Maybe not like now, but like yeah, because like The Incredibles has kind of turned into this like it has more cultural significance, I think. But yeah, like anyways, next is Cars. It was directed by John Lasseter. Yeah, it's Cars. It's Cars. What else is there to say? I know a lot of people really like Cars, and I used to really like Cars. Now, the more I look at it, the less appealing it becomes. Just because it's like, it's an idea that's not really well thought out. Like, the world wasn't really well thought out. The character designs are kind of dumb. And like it didn't push any animation boundaries. Like all of these movies previously had been like pushing at the animation boundaries. Toy Story was the first one with 3D animation. A Bug's Life. Toy Story 2 was like a really big jump from Toy Story. Monsters Inc. like was the first one to really do simulate hair. Finding Nemo was the first one to really simulate water. The Incredibles was the first one that was like fully all humans, no animals, no toys, no whatevers. And it was like the first one to really have like capture like two-dimensional characters in like two-dimensional silhouettes. Like it has really good silhouettes and has like sharp two-dimensional look to it. Like you could see like these look like cartoon like characters come to life, like Toy Story and like all the previous ones. Like yeah, but like not as much as The Incredibles. The Incredibles was the first one to really have like shape to the characters and like these expressions on the humans that were like, yeah, they're just like much better. Like it was a big improvement. And then Cars came along and it's like, hi, how are you doing? Yeah, Cars is definitely like not as great, but then we move on to Brad Bird's second film, Ratatouille. And oh my gosh, this film never gets old. Like it has an infinite rewatchability. Excuse me. Ratatouille is also has a lot of cultural significance. I think Brad Bird's really good at making like really memorable movies. Like you remember a lot from The Incredibles, and you remember a lot from Ratatouille. And yeah, I don't know, like everyone has been praising Ratatouille, and for good reason. And like, yeah, like the only criticisms I've heard of Ratatouille were like either like Linguini is too generic, which I don't really agree with. I think like he's a fine character. And like the only like criticisms I heard is that like we don't get enough screen time for all the chefs, like all the like, because they like gave like they like hinted some of the backgrounds on them, but like they didn't really give them enough screen time. And I'm like, yeah, you could like cut a little bit more from the weird romance between Linguini and Colette. Like that was kind of weird. Like I didn't think that needed that much screen time. But yeah, Brad Bird's like really good at also making more I wouldn't say like more adult, but yeah, kind of more adult films. Like The Incredibles and Ratatouille are two films that are like definitely like made for adults and can be enjoyed by children. Whereas previously, like a lot of the other Pixar films are like made for children and can be enjoyed by adults, kind of. Not as much as other like gosh darn Illumination films or whatever. But yeah, like Ratatouille and Incredibles, Brad Bird's have been doing a good job with like making more mature movies, I'd like to say, I guess. And then after Ratatouille okay, so Ratatouille, another interesting thing I have to say is that the animation in Ratatouille doesn't get old. Like I can look at the animation of Ratatouille and like I won't like say like I like, because like when you look back on like The Incredibles, some of the scenes look like they're like from video games, whereas like in Ratatouille they look good. They look really good. Like they're like as I mentioned before from The Incredibles, like where The Incredibles had a lot of really nice geometric shapes, Ratatouille just kind of doubles up on that. Like Ratatouille has amazing character designs. And then WALL-E. So some people don't like it because it has no dialogue, but I know that like a lot of people like it because it has no dialogue. Like the no dialogue parts are like the best part of WALL-E. just because like it's a romance between robots. How could you not like that? It's a romance between robots, and it's so cute. It's adorable. It's an adorable film. Uh, you got Wally, you got Eve, and then you like the first half is no dialogue other than like Wally Eve, blah blah blah. I can't wait to see the script for that. But then there's the second half is more like you get to the axiom with like people and stuff, and then like Wally really isn't that much about saving our planet so much as it is about just a love story between two robots. It's very sweet. But yeah, like I really liked Wally. I thought Wally was really good. And Wally definitely has like the best end credits. If you stay for the end credits of Wally, definitely like one of the best. Ratatouille has like also really good end credits. But yeah, after Wally comes Pete Docter's next one, which is Up. And oh my gosh, like everyone knows the first 10 minutes of Up, but like I don't think enough people are talking about like the rest of the movie, because in my opinion, the rest of the movie also holds up like just as well as the first 10 minutes, because like people forget like there's like the part where he's flipping through the scrapbook, and you've got like a lot of really creative moments, and like it's just a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of fun in the movie Up, as there is sad scenes. Like it's as funny as it is sad, as it is like kind of terrifying sometimes, as it is like really incredibly beautiful, and it's just everything. Like Up is definitely like if you were to ask me what's the best Pixar film, not my most favorite, but the best Pixar film, I would say Up. Just because it's just so good. Like if you don't like the movie Up, you are not allowed to be within a 1 mile radius. I don't know what I'm saying, but like you can't say that you don't like Up, because that means you don't have feelings or emotions. You are not human, and yeah, no human being can not like Up. But then after Up comes Toy Story 3. And Toy Story 3 and Up are actually the one of the three only animated features that have been nominated for Best Picture in the Oscars, and not a single animated film has won for the Oscars, which really, really irks me. But yeah, Toy Story 3 is a very good extension from the Toy Story franchise, and it was directed by Lee Unkrich, who went on to direct Coco. And so yeah, Toy Story 3 was really good. I actually like it better than, I don't know, I like it more than enjoyed it more than the other two Toy Story movies. Just because like the other two Toy Story movies were like probably better movies, but I don't know, Toy Story 3 was more enjoyable for me, and also like more just bigger. It was like a bigger movie than the other two. Yeah, I don't know. I really liked it, and it like, yeah, it was more, I don't know what else to say about it. It was just really good, I guess. And then the next movie is Cars 2. The next movie is Brave. Okay, so Brave was like, this is where Pixar started to like slip up a little, because after Cars 2 came Brave, and then after Brave came Monsters University. So that was like 3 movies in a row of meh. And so, okay, so I know a lot of people really like Brave and really like Merida, and I'm like, yeah, Merida's a really cool character. Yeah, Brave is a film that has a lot of really good scenes in it, but it also, I don't know, felt like a jumble of a whole bunch of really good ideas that didn't go well together. And also the mom turns into a bear, which yeah, there's like no real reason, I guess. And like, I don't know, it was kind of a disappointment, because it's like they're like, oh, it's the first Pixar, it was like a Pixar Disney princess movie, and this princess is like shooting bow and arrows, and she's gonna be like really cool, and she's gonna be like fighting bears and stuff, and we're like, oh yeah. But all the cool scenes in the trailer weren't actually in the movie, or the posters for that matter. Like the posters and the trailers weren't actually in the movie. Like that scene, like there's scenes where she's like holding a bow and arrow. She's like, look, she looks really, really cool, but she actually doesn't use that bow and arrow a lot in the movie at all, really. I wish it was more like an epic grand story, or like something really cool. It could have been so cool, but instead it's like a movie about the mom turns into a bear and stuff happens, I guess. Moving on to another meh movie, but this time it's the opposite. Instead of a lot of people really liking it except for me, this one's a lot of people really don't like it except for me. I actually think that Monsters University is a pretty good film. I would call it a good film. Not a great film, but a good film. Like, it's like middle tier on the Pixar tier. I should make a Pixar tier list. But yeah, Monsters University, like, everyone's like, oh, it's not as good as Monsters Inc. I'm like, yeah, what did you expect? It's a prequel, and it's like the best prequel that I've ever seen. Don't be mad at me because I haven't seen a lot of prequels, but like Monsters University is a better prequel than any of the Star Wars prequels, I'll let you know. And like Monsters University has like a really, really good message and like a really good ending. The ending of Monsters University, really good. Wow, perfect. Everything else was like kind of bland and generic, but like it was also like the first sort of like college movie that I saw, which is why like it doesn't feel so bland to me. And it's like a really funny film. I laughed a lot in Monsters University. It was a really, really funny film. It was directed by Dan Scanlon, who went on to direct Onward, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, like it has a really, really good ending with like a really powerful message that you don't see a lot in like the animated films. Like just a message to, like, even if you want something really hard, sometimes there are like things that you can't do regardless of how hard you try, which is like a really good message. I just kind of wished that it had a better movie to support it, or like a better rest of the movie to support it. And yeah, like these were 3 films, Cars 2, Brave, Monsters University, that people were like, oh, is Pixar losing their touch? And then Pete Docter comes around and makes Inside Out. And the reason why Monsters University came out 2013, Inside Out came out 2015, you might notice that 2014 is missing, and that's because there's a movie that was going to come out in 2014 called Newt. It's the only canceled film that Pixar has ever made. It was about like 2 newts who are part of like an endangered newt species, and they need to fall in love to save their species, and there's like scientists and stuff like that. And the reason why this might sound familiar is because it's the same plot as Rio from Blue Sky, even though Pixar could have done it a whole lot better. Yeah, I'm kind of sad that Newt got canceled, but apparently they say that like Rio is not the reason why it got canceled. But yeah, I really wish they did it, because if you look at the concept art, if you look up Newt concept art, it's like, it's really good. It's really good. It looks really beautiful. It looks like it could have been a really good film. But yeah, it was canceled. What's next? Yeah, Inside Out. Inside Out is like second best Pixar movie ever. Yeah. Just because like it's it's so okay. Inside Out, like, okay, I know that a lot of people were like, oh, Inside Out's like kind of overrated, but like, hear me out. Inside Out is like a really really good film, and it delivers like a really really good message. And Inside Out has actually taught me a lot about like mental health and things like that, like emotional awareness and whatnot. Um, yeah, like it does. Like people say, like, I mean, the short way to say what Inside Out teaches is like sadness is important. You don't have to be joyful all the time, which is like, yeah, but it also, like, when you think about it more, like it like shows how like depression isn't just being sad. It's about like losing all of your emotions and your ability to feel. It's not just being sad. It's not something you can just kind of gloss over or hide. It's like a big thing. Like, it's not just being sad, and like cheering you up wouldn't help. What helps is to feel things. And the best, like, one of the best ways to like be able to do that is to cry, to let out your emotions, to be vulnerable and cry with your fellow trusted people in your life. And Inside Out is just full of so many, like, not only is the message great, but the movie is great. It's like very engaging. Joy as a character isn't like really that annoying. I mean, when she is annoying, it's because she's supposed to be annoying. But she's like never like over the top annoying, which she could have so easily been. And like just the way it's framed, it's like really really well. Like, it starts off like with like framing sadness as the annoying one, because the movie knows that we as a society sort of like don't really like sadness, and we like suppress sadness, you know? So yeah, like, I don't know. Inside Out's a really good movie, and I recommend it if you haven't watched it for some reason. I recommend a lot of these movies if you haven't watched it for some reason. And then, so Inside Out was the first movie to, like, 2015 was the first year where Pixar released 2 movies in 1 year. Inside Out coming out in, like, June, and then The Good Dinosaur coming out in November. And oh boy, is The Good Dinosaur trying so hard to be a Pixar movie. Yeah, I kind of feel bad for, like, being mean to The Good Dinosaur. I mean, it is, like, a pretty harmless, like, little kids film. It's definitely very much a kids film. But yeah, it was very, very average. Extremely average. Like, a little, like, it wasn't a good dinosaur. It was, like, a little less than good dinosaur. It was like an adventure movie-ish of 2 characters finding their way home, bumping across characters that never really come back or don't have enough screen time. Like, some of the characters are good. Like, some of the characters are really charming, and I really like them, but they just don't show up long enough. And there are a lot of, like, weird, just, like, in-the-middle scenes. Like, there was, like, a scene where they got drunk on, like, berries or something. It was, yeah, it's an okay film. Not much to say. And then after that, Finding Dory. Okay, this is a very split film. I know a lot of people who really like this film, and a lot of people who really don't like this film. A lot of people categorize this film as one of the failed sequel attempts, but I personally think that Finding Dory is, how do I put it? It's like, it is competition with Finding Nemo. Like, you can compare these two. Like, these two are comparable with each other. That's how good I think Finding Dory is. Just because, like, people say, like, oh, Finding Dory isn't as big of a scale. Like, they don't, like, it's like Finding Nemo is more, like, big. You were in the ocean. Finding Dory, majority of it is spent in an aquarium. But Finding Dory is much bigger with, like, just mental stuff. Like, it's all about Dory going through, like, her own, like, her own dealings with having short-term memory loss. And, like, if you rewatch the film, or if you just look through the film, you'll notice that, like, it's really good at, like, doing this. Like, it's not it's not like a lot of films where like the character like has a struggle and they fix it, or like their struggle turns into this like really like big thing that actually turns out to be like their superpower. No, like in Finding Dory, Dory struggles and she works through her struggles, like just on her own, using her own stuff, and it's like really good. It's really good. I really liked Finding Dory. I don't know why people don't like Finding Dory. I personally really liked Finding Dory. Okay, so next. Okay, Cars 3. Cars 3 is another Cars movie. Definitely, in my opinion, best out of all the Cars movies, but that isn't really saying much. I thought that it was kind of boring, actually. A lot of talking, not a lot of stuff going on. But then again, with a lot of these Cars movies, you can't do a lot of stuff. Because if you look at their character designs, they can't really move that much. They're cars. They can't be too expressive because they're cars. There's a lot of there's only so much you can do with a movie about cars. It's just, Anyways, yeah, moving on. I guess the Cars 3, like what did Cars 3 like improve as far as animation goes? I guess like they said that like a technical like challenge was the mud. So like, yeah, that's cool. Great. Let's go on to the much better film, which is Coco. Coco! Oh my gosh, Coco is so good. It was like after another like year of another like The Good Dinosaur and Cars 3. I'm not gonna say Finding Dory because Finding Dory was amazing. Okay, Coco was another like really really good film. And it was directed by Lee Unkrich, who had finished from Toy Story 3. And originally, people were really, really mad when it was announced. And for the right reason, because it was a story based in Mexico, directed by a white man. Which is like, yeah, that makes... I understand why you're upset. That I would be upset too. If it weren't an amazing film with a lot of time and dedication put into it, and thought, and like if it weren't for the fact that all the filmmakers spent 6 years in Mexico in order to capture this movie in the best way it could possibly be, and they remade the film in Spanish so that the lip syncing would match. Like, if that isn't dedication, then I don't know what is. And like, it was like, and rightfully so. Like, this is what Pixar should do. Like, it's impressive, and it's what they should have done. So congratulations to you, Pixar. You're already a step ahead of Disney. Cause like a lot of people, cause when Coco came out, so did Moana. And these two films have been compared on how they handle different cultures and ethnicities. And I'm like, yeah, Coco, you win. Anyways, moving on. The Incredibles 2. Yeah, I actually really like this film. I know a lot of people don't like this film, and I really like this film. The only thing that I don't like about it, which are like big things, but like it also has a lot of really good things. But like the bad things are 1, the villain, and 2, the ending, because both of them were just really weak. The villain was very weak and kind of stupid. Like they built it up to be this big plot twist, even though the entire time you're like, yeah, we know who it is. And then the ending took place on a boat. Yeah, the ending took place on a boat. Brad Bird was having trouble like with he had like two different ideas basically, and one involved like more superhero stuff and less like Lifetime stuff, and one involved more Lifetime stuff and less superhero stuff, and he was having a hard time balance them, which you can kind of see in here because they were like really rushing in this film. I heard that there's a lot of rushing in The Incredibles 2, which you can kind of see, but like The Incredibles 2 is still really really good. Not to mention the animation. Oh my gosh, compare The Incredibles to The Incredibles. Don't actually, that's like a 14-year difference, but like The Incredibles 2, was so good with its geometric shapes. I love that art style. It's like sharp and like it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. You cannot convince me otherwise. After Incredibles 2 is Toy Story 4. Yeah, Toy Story 4. It's the worst out of the Toy Story movies, which is still really, really good. It's really, really, really good. It belongs with the other Toy Stories. That's how good it is. And not to mention, the animation in this movie is absolutely stunning. Like, it looks real. It looks better than real life. It just, like, they use these, like, actual cameras to film it, like not like they use actual lenses in the digital world to film it, to get it to make it look like it was shot with an actual camera. And the textures are like extremely detailed. If you look up like scenes from the movie and you zoom in, you can see all the tiny little scratch marks and everything, and it was like, oh, it was so good. The only problem is that it's not as good as of a conclusion as Toy Story 3 was, kind of, in a way. Like, it wasn't as grand of an exit. Like, Toy Story 3 did its thing and, like, went out with flying colors, and then Toy Story 4 kind of dragged its feet as it walked out of the door. Like, it ended well, but not as well as Toy Story 3. And for that, I think it should have been named something else, as other people have mentioned. It should have probably been called, like, Woody or something, because it only focuses on Woody, mostly. And then people would, like, love it, but now people have problems with it because it's called Toy Story 4. But I like to see it more as, like, an epilogue than an actual, like, last chapter. Excuse me. But yeah, it was really good. I'd say it was definitely, like, a lot of people put time into it, and they could have so easily made it bad, but it was really good, and it did deserve the Oscars, despite the fact that Klaus definitely also deserved the Oscars. Like, if you could hand out 2 Oscars, that would be great, please. But yeah, next is Onward by Dan Scanlon, and so this was his own film. And this is definitely, like, the most personal film out of all of the Pixar films. If you don't know, this film is based off of Dan Scanlon. Okay, actually, okay, well, I was gonna say spoilers, but, like, it's a bit too late by now. I've already spoiled all of the movies. Dan Scanlon was basing this off of his relationship with his brother and his dad, who died before he really got to know him. And then so one day, Dan Scanlon and, like, his family found an old recording of his dad, and he mentioned how, like, hearing the recording was like his dad was brought back to life. And so he put that into this movie, which is about, you know, 2 brothers who lost their father, and then they bring their father back to life, but he's only half there, which is genius, because if you watch the ending, I guess I won't spoil it, because I just don't want to spoil it for whoever is, like, wondering whether you should watch it or not. Watch it. The ending is so good. Kind of like Monsters University, how the ending is, like, really, really, really good, except this time it has a movie to back it up. I actually think that the rest of the movie is also really, really good. I thought it was really, really well made, but, like, a lot of people don't agree with me, which is kind of sad, because it came out March 6th, right when the coronavirus kind of really hit, and so it actually did the worst in the box office, until it was moved to Disney Plus, and then it turned into The Good Dinosaur. But yeah, like, Onward definitely deserves more attention, so if you can watch it, please do. It's a really, really good film. Very, very heartwarming, very, very sweet. It's like the worst out of the best movies, I'd say. Maybe, no, not even the worst of the best movies, but definitely, like, it was definitely on the top there. I would put it near the top. Not on the top, but near the top. I guess the only problem with it that I have is that, like, the world wasn't very thought through. Like, it could have been more fantasy and less modern, because it was like a mix between a modern and fantasy world, and I think it could have done with a little more fantasy and a little less modern. Be a little more creative with their world, like like Zootopia, how creative that world was. Do that, but with fantasy creatures. That would be cool. But yeah. Okay, well, so the big problem with that, though, like, the big problem with Onward is what I'm gonna expand on this, but, yeah, like, in the movie, it's more of, like, a world that was, like, built for people, and then, like, tweaked to look fantastical, when it should have been, like, a world built for fantasy, and, like, tweaked to look more human, I guess, in a way. But it's still really good. Like, they've got, like, a lot of really creative things. Like, the fonts are all in that, like, fantasy font. Like, all of the signs on the phone are really funny. And, like, all of the skyscrapers are in the shape of, like, castles. And, I don't know, it's just really, I still find it really fun and creative. I really like it. I think it's really good. If you look at, like, there's a lot of, like, little small details in it that you can look at and be like, ha, that is really funny. Soul. My favorite movie of all time. Directed by Pete Docter. It's a movie about life. And I already made a review on this film. But there are stuff that I haven't talked about yet that I want to talk about, which is another metaphor that I found is that the entire movie takes place in one day from morning to afternoon, which kind of represents life because waking up, sleeping is like being born and then dying. It's all in one day. Just like life is really short and blah blah blah. You know where I'm going with this. I'm not gonna go too far, but yeah, I think that's another metaphor that I found and stuff. But yeah, this film is just so good. It's so incredibly good. The most beautiful animated film that I have ever seen. Pretty much in the 3D place, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just really, really beautiful. It's so pretty and gorgeous. The character design's flawless. The music, incredibly good. All of the jazz, all of the piano was played by John Baptiste, who is amazing at the piano, and like all of the jazz music, very, very great. All of the interesting like techno music for the Soul world, also incredibly great. It was like made by the people who composed the score for Social Network, apparently. But yeah, like this movie, so good. Like I can't stop watching it. I've already watched it so many times, but I need to watch more of it. It's so good. I can't get enough of it. It's like it does such a great job at letting people know the difference between a passion and a purpose, which is not something that you would really think about, or not something that I thought about, but like, and people have been wondering like, oh, like, is this, another thing I was gonna mention that I didn't mention in the review is that people complained that like maybe it's like too adult for kids. But what people don't realize is that while Joe's story is probably aimed more for adults, and I agree that kids probably won't get it as much, people seem to forget about 22. 22's journey represents what it's like to be a kid. As a kid, you are often told, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or like, you're forced to like pick a decision. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to grow up to be? And then like you spend your entire like life preparing for this moment without actually really knowing what it's like to actually live in the real world. You don't have that experience. You don't, like, all you're doing is like preparing for something really big. And that's why like 22 is uninterested, because like if she's always prepared for these things, but she never actually experienced these things. And sometimes kids need to experience certain things in order to be able to get a good sense of what they're getting themselves into. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, Soul is really good. Favorite, one of my favorites. Also, okay, so upcoming films. The next film coming out from Pixar is Luca, based in Italy. It's like about these two brothers, or not two brothers, two friends, and one of them is secretly a sea monster. Um, and that's like all I know. But yeah, they released like a teaser shots from the film, and it's definitely looks very different from like a lot of the nowadays film like Pixar films. A lot of the Pixar films are like more leaning towards the realistic side of things, but Luca is definitely like way more stylized and a way more like cartoonish. Actually, it looks more cartoonish. Um, at first I didn't really like their character designs, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. And I actually think that it looks really colorful and bubbly, and I really like that bubbly look. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited for Luca. Um, yeah, I don't know much about the director, but I do know that this film is definitely gonna be pretty good. I have high hope. I have pretty high hopes for it. Um, After that is Turning Red, and I am so excited for Turning Red. Comes out 2022. It's directed by Domishi, I think is how you describe it. I mean, how do you pronounce it? You should know how to just pronounce it. I'm also, yeah. Anyways, I should know how to describe. Should know how to pronounce it, but I don't. But yeah, she's the director of Bao, which is the short that played before Incredibles 2, about like the little dumpling boy that lives with his mother and stuff like that. I really like that film. I'm obviously biased towards it because Asian representation. Let's go. Chinese representation, to be specific. But yeah, I really liked that short film. It was very, very sweet. And I'm so excited for Turning Red because it looks really, really sweet too. And it's about like a teenage girl who like is going through puberty, but whenever she gets excited, she turns into a red panda. And I don't know, like if you're not sold by that concept, then I don't know what you're thinking because your opinion is wrong. But yeah, I'm like so excited for that movie. It looks so cute, and so amazing. And finally, we're gonna get like a Chinese or at least Asian, like a Chinese Pixar movie. So excited, so excited. And then next is Lightyear. So Lightyear is actually not a Toy Story film. It's so in the first Toy Story film, they showed a commercial of Buzz Lightyear, the action figure, saying it was based off of a movie, and Lightyear is going to be that movie that it's based off of, which is like so genius, and it's gonna be so fun. Oh my gosh. I'm also really excited for this movie because it has so much potential. Like there's so many things you could do with it, and it's gonna be like Star Wars meets Pixar, because like even in Toy Story 2 they have a lot of Star Wars references with Buzz Lightyear, so it's gonna be like a Star Wars Pixar film, which like two things that like I cannot wait to see come together. Like just think about all of the things you could do with that. Star Wars meets Pixar meets Toy Story. Like it's gonna be great. It's gonna be amazing. Oh, and also Buzz Lightyear will be voiced by Chris Evans, because they mentioned that like a lot of the times the toys are when you like click a toy and it like makes a voice, the voice is oftentimes not the voice actor because that'd be too expensive. And so it's gonna be funny because it's like not the same voice, but also Chris Evans is like the perfect person to voice Buzz. And it's funny because Chris Evans just left Marvel and now he's coming to Pixar, so he's still trapped in the House of Mouse. But yeah, I can't wait for Lightyear. There's also going to be another movie apparently coming out from Pixar in 2023 but hasn't been announced yet. Also, there's a series, there's a TV series from Pixar coming out called Win or Lose, and it's gonna be about a softball game, but each episode is about the same day, but each episode is within a different perspective of a different like character, which is like so cool. Like, oh my gosh, because it was apparently made by two animators who both went to like the same meeting, but one of them thought that it was going great, and the other one thought that it was going horrible, and so they went off of that idea and like made this film and made this TV show, and I'm so excited because like first of all, Pixar TV show, come on, and also there's just so much possibility. There's so many possibilities with this. It like it could be so good. It's gonna be so good. There's also like a whole lot of other series. There's like a Doug series about Doug from Up, the dog, which is gonna be really cute. And there's also a series called Monsters at Work, I think. Monsters Inc. series. I think it's gonna be about, from what I can tell, I think it's gonna be about like the monsters like changing, like, cause like the corporation changing from being scream energy based to laugh energy based, and then maybe I think it's gonna be about like one of the employees probably like having to deal with the change of like from using the skills of scaring people to using the skills of making people laugh, which is what I think it's about. But I mean, like, let me know in the future, by the way, future people who are watching this, if it's gonna be about something else. But those are my predictions as far as I know. There's like some like concept art of it, I think, online, but other than that, like, not much. It's just like character designs and like a few poses. But yeah, I think that's like pretty much it. Yeah, Pixar is an incredible studio. Top animation studios of all time, definitely, by far. And definitely best studio at 3D animation. There's just something about Pixar films that, like, the way they look, is just so much more natural than a lot of the other animated and 3D animation studios. Like, even DreamWorks, like, even though like even DreamWorks only has like 2 series of animation that like really get close, and that's like How to Train Your Dragon and Kung Fu Panda, and even those can't really compete with like all of Pixar's films. And like Pixar is really good at originals. They've done a lot of original movies. Like, people don't realize this, but like they've never done three sequels in a row at all. You got like Toy Story 3, Toy Story 3, Cars 2, and then an original movie. Monsters University, original movie. Finding Dory, Cars 3, original movie. Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, original movie. And I guess Lightyear isn't really an original movie, but like kind of, I guess. I'll count it as an original movie. Why not? Because it's not really like Toy Story film, I guess. Maybe not. I guess it's more of a spin-off. Yeah, sure, it's a spin-off. But yeah, like, you know what I'm saying. Like, Pixar has done really well with their original movies. And I'm saying that because gosh darn Disney, like, Raya and the Last Dragon better be good. But yeah, I don't know. Pixar, it's so good. Please hire me when I'm older. I really, really want to go to Pixar when I grow up. And if Pixar doesn't work out, then YouTube it is. So, I don't know, like, Pixar is just so great at making these, like, actually just for all ages. Like, it's not like a kid's movie that has like some adult jokes in it. It's for all ages, can be enjoyed by all ages. Like, yeah, these are more than just silly kids short films. They're like silly kids films. they're really good. And not to mention, I forgot to mention, their short films also really good. Very experimental, some of them, and some of them are just like really good. My favorite short film, if you want to know, is Piper, which came before Finding Dory. It's very cute, very very good animation. But yeah, that was 1 hour of Pixar with me, meant to either keep you doing your homework and not paying attention or falling asleep. Best way to get yourself to relax. So yeah, thanks for listening.